All right, so welcome to the coffee. I think a lot of you, this is your first time. So essentially, it's just a casual space to get to know each other. In Zoom, people who are doing regenerative business type of things that we really support in our community. Just, oftentimes give them a platform to share about what they're working on and find opportunities to support each other. So I really love Shellie's project, which she'll tell you a bit more about. But before we get to that, I think basically the agenda for today is we're going to do maybe 20 minutes of quick introductions with everybody. Like why are you here? What about Next San Diego or this event interested you? And maybe how we might be able to support you in a short way or something like that. And at the very end, we'll kick it off to Shellie. She'll talk a bit about our genetic legacy and what she's working on, how you might be able to get involved there. And then we'll leave the last 20 minutes or so to open Q&A. So if that sounds good, maybe we'll do some popcorn introductions. Normally I don't go first because a lot of the people know me, but it looks like there's a handful of people who don't know me. So I'll go first. I'm Isabel. Still getting used to saying my pronouns, but I'm she, her, hers. I'm in San Diego in University City. I am relatively new to this regenerative stuff, admittedly. And yeah, I kind of co-founded Next San Diego with a handful of the committee members. The committee is totally open to anyone who wants to join, but just personally, I'm really passionate about this concept of aligning your personal values with business in a way that doesn't compromise your needs and kind of meets the needs of everyone involved in creating thriving economy for everybody, where economy doesn't mean just money, but there are other forms of energy. So personally, still really exploring these concepts and what that means for me, and functionally, what does that look like in my work and business. And I just really love connecting people and helping them. So that's where I'm at. It would be really great if you could share this with other people. And if you have time or you're interested, come chat with me and see how you can get involved in Next San Diego and make it a little bit more of your vision too. So thanks. I will pass it off to Malia.
Thanks, Isabel. This is Malia Garcia. I'm also based in San Diego. I'm in Claremont. And I have started a project called Inside Out. We are community builders and education advocates. And we are here to help people connect to empower their own human potential. And I'm excited to be here also to support Shellie as we are getting going with our genetic legacy. And I'm going to be on the board of that organization as well. Representation matters, and documenting our stories and legacy is critical. So I'm excited to be here and learn more about others who are in the room with us.
So maybe I'll make it faster because I know everyone has a different order of names on their screen. Manahari, would you like to go next?
Hi, can you hear me? Okay, thank you for having me. My name is Manahari Hansel. I am here because I got the invitation to join this session via Good Market, which is something that Next is working with, I believe. So a little bit of information about me. I'm a brand new resident of the United States. I have lived and worked my entire life in Sri Lanka, primarily, so my education, everything. And my husband is an American, so I moved here. I'm brand new, and I'm finding this is an opportunity for me to find out what's happening. I'm really interested in the work that Next is doing. I'm interested in any way that I can maybe contribute. So I'm here to learn. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Manahari. Tracy, would you like to go next?
Hi, everyone. I apologize for not being Zoom ready, but my name is Tracy Chenault. I'm excited to be here today to support Shellie. She's a longtime friend of mine, and I'm excited to just hear what she has to share with us today. So great opportunity, great platform, and I would love to be able to talk more just about some personal things that I'm doing as well. But today's Shellie's day. Thanks.
Thank you. Tanya?
Hi, everyone. My name is Tanya, and this is my first time joining Next, and I just think it's a really exciting space for people to talk about their projects and ideas, and so I would just love to connect with more people like this. And Isabel, if there are opportunities to get more involved, I'd love to talk about that with you offline. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for joining, Tanya.
Yeah.
Melissa?
Hi, my name is Melissa Lee. I'm actually working with Malia Garcia, and she introduced me to some of the concepts around our genetic legacy and Shellie, and she said, you should come and join us and listen in. And so I'm really excited to hear from her and what's going on and get to know more about this.
Awesome. Nyla?
Hi everyone, my name is Nyla and I'm here to support our genetic legacy and then also to learn more about Next and its mission and values.
Sounds good. Stella?
Hello, everyone. My name is Shellie Baxter, and I'm here to support my child and just to learn what this is all about. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you, Stella. And I'm not sure, KLBW, what your name is?
Hi, my name is Kaya. I'm Shellie's oldest daughter, and I'm just here to support my mother and hear more about, some of her initiatives and what she's doing with our genetic legacy.
I love it. I love all the support that Shellie's getting. You guys are here. And then I guess one last person before we give it to Shellie. Brandon, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Brandon, and I'm a freelance consultant in biotech. I've known Isabel for a long time, and I'm just here to keep up with Next San Diego and all of the cool things that are going on.
Awesome. So I guess, Shellie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, everybody. My name is Shellie Baxter. I'm the founder and CEO of Our Genetic Legacy. Our Genetic Legacy was born out of the discovery of the need to help BIPOC Americans, Black, Indigenous, and people of color to find their lost ancestral legacies and to publicize those in the public realm so that our legacies aren't continually lost with each generation. And so as part of that effort, we are creating new American history books. And we're doing it in a way that's never been done before. We're using genetic genealogy, primarily ancestry, DNA, and then we are doing the research of finding your genetic family members. And we take about 4 months to do that work. By the time of that end of that 4 months, each participant will have expert genealogical research skills so that they can continue to research on their own outside of the project. But the final phase of the project is actually writing a chapter of this new history book around one of the ancestors that you have researched during course 2. And at the end of this year, we'll be publishing our first history book. We're hoping to publicize at least 30 news stories of American pioneers of color that are currently not being represented in our history books that we are commonly being taught out of.
That's awesome. I mean, so it sounds like we have went kind of quickly with the introductions of everyone else. So there's more space if you want to share maybe a bit more about you as well, and then dive a little bit deeper into our genetic legacy.
About me, I'm more into the origin story of our genetic legacy. Back in the early 2000s, my grandmother had volunteered for San Diego to be the host city for our family reunion. And I was assigned the Find the Family Tree to do that research and work. And I really thought I had done a great job. We were royalty when I got done clicking all the leaves on Ancestry and building out my tree. Yeah, we were definitely royalty. The queen was our cousin. We actually took a trip to Europe and, fancied the fact that, oh, our cousin's inside. But then when Ancestry DNA came out, I realized that the struggle is real for people of color because so many records just don't exist. And so you don't realize like the commonality of names and stories to really find your own legacies. And so much of that documentation is missing because of the brick wall of 1865. That's, when we were determined to be 3/5 of a person. Before that, we were, less than that. We were treated as cattle and, horses, and that's how we were cataloged. So we had no names. So it takes a real intensive effort to do that research to recover those names. And it's really important that we do that now to instill those values and that information to preserve it. Because for future generations, it's going to become harder and harder to find as we move further away from the point of origin. And by putting it in these new history books in this way, it makes it public knowledge. And then it also negates the excuse that these stories don't exist, that there are no books written in this manner to be able to use for curriculum. And so we are solving that problem by creating these books, and then these stories are being giving voice to Americans who have been disenfranchised their entire existence here in America to claim their rightful place in America's history.
Wow, so powerful. And there's a lot more too. I've talked with Shellie before. Like, I don't know if this is a divergent, but like you also have your drone project.
Yes. So another project that we have, because like I say, our whole mission is to find and publicize lost ancestral legacies. And so many people of color are buried in lost, hidden burial grounds that are undocumented. And so what we are working to do is take a drone to map these areas. And we did our beta test back in 2019 in Alabama. And what I discovered during that beta test was that a lot of the older graves that we are trying to find, they're lost in the trees of active burial grounds, of active cemeteries, where it's a cemetery where my second great grandfather is buried. So much of it is, kept up. They're still actively burying people there, but you can look off in the trees and you can see ancestors' burial ground. You can see headstones that are broken apart in those trees. And so now we are revamping to conduct funding. We're working with a drone producer out of Cleveland, and we're going to produce a drone that has GPR and LiDAR capabilities so that we can fly above the trees and find some of those lost ancestral burial grounds, and then find some of those descendants to tell their stories, include those in our history books.
That's super cool. And so what kind of, areas are you looking for support in with Argent Legacy this year?
Right now, a lot of it is we are a new organization. We are fiscally sponsored through Rise San Diego. I've been participating in some of their programming for the past 3 years. And that's how, just developing this business over these past 3 years and the structure. And I'm now on the path to get my own 501c3, but we are starting our second cohort for the history book. So we are looking for participants for our workshop. We're doing recruitment and just, publicizing the project, the initiative, to start putting it on people's radar, if not for this upcoming cohort, for future cohorts, because we plan to produce a book every year is going to be our goal, because we feel like there's such a scarcity in the market that we really need to do a concentrated effort to produce books to counter that negative narrative.
And are you also looking for like editors and writers?
We are looking for editors, writers. We just recently started what we call the History Makers Advisory Board. And so that was what Malia was speaking to earlier. It is the dream team of professionals representing various aspects, various professions that we believe are necessary in order to produce this book and market it well. And so we have our chairs for those committees, but we will definitely be looking for people to help with some of the other work that those committees will be doing. And so on our website, there is a place to volunteer in order to help, do the work, because it is a community-based effort, and it's going to take, the entire village. It seems like they always say, like it takes a village to raise a child. Well, this is the baby. This history book is the baby, and it needs some aunts and uncles to help bring it to full fruition. And so the other thing we're looking for help with is just donations, people sponsoring scholarships, because we really want to appeal to underserved communities. But because of the expense and being a new organization and just now starting to be able to apply for grants, we're looking for people to provide scholarships so that we can provide these opportunities to people who would want to do it, but it's cost prohibitive.
Right. I mean, so that's kind of next question is like, who's your ideal participant in the cohorts?
Our ideal participant is we are going to be finalizing some of our target audience, but currently we think that it's best if done as a group effort, because it is a lot of work for one person to do, and it sparks a lot of intergenerational exchange and conversations within the family. So if it's done as a group activity within a family, it makes it more doable. It sparks conversation. It allows interest between the generations. The stories that are being lost provides opportunity to share those, and then it's an ongoing activity beyond just the writing of this one chapter. So that's what we're looking for, is people who are interested in changing the narrative and including the achievements of Americans of color who have been disenfranchised.
That's beautiful. So, I mean, I guess want to open it up to you, Shellie, if there's something else you might want to share before we open the floodgates of questions.
Yeah, let's go to the questions. I feel like it's always weird when you're just talking and you don't have a chance to interact. So I'm definitely interested.
Yeah, the floor is open if anyone has something they want to ask or say. Don't all rush at once.
Yeah, my question is regarding the grave sites. I know that you said you've done some research in that regard. Can you expound on that?
So part of what, oh, go on.
The ones that are hidden that are really needing to be rediscovered at this point.
So many of those names are lost in those dilapidated areas, and it's very difficult to oftentimes do your full research when you can't find the location of birth or death of your ancestor. And so because we have to backtrack, that information becomes really, really critical. And then just to pay homage to those souls that have been lost and forgotten, that have made all of this possible. So it's a twofold effort in terms of reviving their stories in order to memorialize them for future generations, but also to pay homage to the lives that they lived and the sacrifices that they made for the betterment in the end of all people.
Where is your goal for the history books to go after they're completed?
So the goal is to get them in school libraries, to get them in, bookstores. We want to appeal to a broad base of people, both in the educational system and as individuals. When we did our beta test, we had participants ranging in age from 13 to 78. So for any child participant, one of the books will be donated to their school library, just to increase their investment in, American history as a subject, and just in sharing their own personal stories, and to know that their lives have value that is worthy of being published in these history books. And so we really want to appeal to a broad audience, and we're just going to do our bit to chisel away at those two markets.
Shellie, are you finding pushback or people that are naysayers around the work that you're doing, or the importance of the work that you're doing? Are you finding any pushback anywhere?
So far, surprisingly, no. I think that, maybe a lot of people like in the back of their mind are kind of like, yeah, but I, talk about it so much that it's like, well, you know what, show me. And I think that because of what's going on in the political climate, social climate of the world today, that it takes, outrageous ideas to change what we have been doing for all these hundreds of years that hasn't worked. So far it's been really, really good in terms of not getting pushback, but we're still early in the, process. And so I am hoping that we continue to have this level of acceptance as we get ready to actually go to market with the actual book. And the reception is the same as it has been so far. But so far it's been really, really positive. We were able to assemble this dream team board of which you are a part in a very short amount of time, just based on people's response to the need and wanting to be a part of a project that has such a potentially broad impact.
I'd like to ask one more question, and it's personal and you can say no, but how has this changed the family dynamics with all of this information and story that you're getting?
So it's changed quite a few people's lives that I know, just even before, actually putting it in book form, just in helping people find their ancestral heritage, whether it be known or unknown parentage. In fact, today, just earlier today, I had confirmation of a case where I had a friend who was adopted, didn't know who her mother or her father is. We were able to determine the mother. We were pretty sure about the father, but we got the final results today. And so now she went from being an only child to having three brothers and three sisters who are all anxious to meet her, including, nieces, nephews, great nieces and nephews, and having this large extended family while still, maintaining her adopted family. And so it's been a, roller coaster of emotions for her, but at the end of the day, she's grateful to have expanded that space. And that's just one story. There's it's happened a number of times, and that's a large reason why I pushed to do this, because a lot of people don't like say that, oh, you open up a Pandora's box, there's just culturally, we don't, certain things we just don't speak on, or we don't share. And that's why there's so much, additional confusion in terms of our heritage. But I just want people to know that it expands, that you can't have too many people that love you. There's no way that that can be possible. And so even if you find out information that was not in accordance, what your belief system was, it had to happen for you to be alive. And so just look for the good in that and use that as, positive stepping stones to expand your circle of influence and those who can influence and feed into you.
How can I ask a question?
Yes.
How do you become a participant in the book?
So to become a participant, it's a 3-part series, the workshop. The first workshop is not, it's more of an introductory. So it's a 3-session, it's a full weekend, and then 1 evening. And that just kind of gives you an overview of how genealogy and legacy tracing works. Legacy tracing is the methodology by which we research to write these books. So when you sign up for course 2, that's intensive legacy training. That's 4 months of hands-on research. That also includes teaching you how to find private information within your own family. Like a lot of us have pictures or obituaries, information that are, privately held and not in the public domain. So we teach you how to get those sources and, collect all these primary sources. Then you go to course 3, where we actually do the writing portion, which is another 4-month series. We currently have taken on a series of ghostwriters to help our practitioners be able to write the story in the way that they want to write it. And so people are writing it in creative forms of, you know, it could be a song, it could be spoken word, it can be a short story, it can be a play, as long as it's based on the facts. And then at the end of that, we're going to have our history book, and we plan to have a celebration exhibiting that book in next Black History Month of 2022. So go to the website, ourgeneticlegacy.com, and the History Makers Workshop is how you can sign up. And even if it's something that you may not be interested in participating in, like I said, we have scholarships. So you can make donations towards the program as a whole or specifically towards scholarships. And we will make sure that you know who your scholarship recipient was to help other people participate in the program.
So I have a maybe not so quick question, but for a lot of people, being a country of immigrants, how do you approach when the history books or the genealogy traces back outside of the US?
It's always going to eventually do that because, other than the natives, which that was, its own history that we go into. So it's all a part of the process. So the actual history books, we have a theme that we will do each year. And so that is actually something that we plan to meet about later today and finalize tomorrow. And so everybody, you can do your research to wherever it takes you, but just your story that you're going to write for this particular book is going to be, it can, about someone who was, in the States, whether it be their process to becoming an American citizen or the first generation that was born American. So it allows you to have that information, but not all of it will necessarily go into the history book. So we teach you how to do that research that will take you even further back into other countries, looking for origin stories.
Thank you. I was also going to maybe suggest, since we have a couple people who came in after and didn't get to introduce themselves yet, if they would like to. So maybe Ruby and then Lena.
Well, I can introduce myself. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you, Shelly, and thank you for sharing your experience. I am from Colombia, Bogota, South America, and I am part of Stellar Co. I am doing an internship during a fellowship program with the U.S. Department State. So I am so pleased to meet you all and to know a little bit more about Next San Diego and all the events and the coffee events that you make. So I'm just amazed to hear about your experience, and thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks, Lena. Yeah, today is Shelly's day. So Shelly is part of us now. So you're learning through that. Maybe I'll give Ruby a little bit more time, but I think there's also, sorry if I'm not pronouncing this correctly, Mulela. If you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm a daycare provider. I'm just here supporting Shelly, and I have a baby having a fit right now, so it wouldn't be a great time for me to talk.
Well, thanks for showing support. I mean, this is wonderful, Shelly. You have such a big support network. I mean, it's about family, right? That's what our genetic legacy is.
And it's the extended definition of, so it's, biological, it's situational. And so these are all the people who are always there for me. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, and Ruby, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Ruby. I was actually a part of the beginning of the first cohort. I'm here just to support Shelly to see what the next steps are. I'm excited to continue to be a part of the program. So great job today, Shelly. Hi, everyone.
Oh, wow, cool. We have someone in the cohort. So, I mean, if there's no other questions, maybe we'll just keep it open.
Isabel, maybe you can share a little bit. This is my first, next meeting coffee talk. And again, just like you mentioned in the beginning, learning about regenerative, I can't even say it. Regenerative business. Can you give us a little overview of that, or maybe some of the concepts and highlights? Because I'd like to also think about the context of, our genetic legacy and that as a pillar in our community in ways that we can, more so than just like sharing these stories and bringing people in to write this book. What are some of the concepts that we can kind of expand into our organization as we go out into the public that take some of these concepts of regenerative businesses?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you, Malia. So maybe a lot of you like me are like, what the heck does that mean? Regenerative business? What does regenerative mean? For me, it's relatively new and it came in through someone else in our community, but essentially, I think you're all familiar with the term sustainability. However, in San Diego, and I think this is a regional thing, that has a strong connotation towards green and recycling and conservation of materials and energy, but totally removes the human element of how you treat other people or consider them as individuals. And so, also, the definition of sustainability literally means to maintain or keep the same. But we know, what is happening now, we don't want to maintain that. There's a lot of wrong that needs to be corrected or fixed or healed or, And so that's where regenerative comes in. It's saying, yes, sustainability, but also let's heal some of that wrong, right? Let's look at some of the inequities that there are and how we can make decisions in all aspects of our lives instead of, siloing business as this bubble. Business is interconnected within the community and society at large and has very large impacts. And so even there, it's still kind of like people are struggling with the concept of, well, what is regenerative? Like, what is a regenerative finance department? Like, what are actions that I can take that are regenerative? And it's taken me a long time to get around, wrapping my head around that too. But I think it's less so about the specific decisions that you make, more about how you got to those decisions. What were you thinking about and considering in making them? So it's more like a philosophy rather than a study, if that makes sense. So for example, you're, as a business owner or anyone in society, you're considering how any of the choices that you make will impact other people. And not only that, but considering what their needs might be. So, maybe one more tangible example is a lot of business trying to do better. It's like, okay, well, let's hire more whatever people, like Black people, Asian people, women, and then let's pay them more. Let's promote them more. But that's kind of backwards, right? That's the outcome that you want. But the way that you're making that decision, why are you making those choices? Well, people say we should have better diversity, equity, inclusion. Okay, but like, why? Why do you care? Well, because diversity is better. But like, that's not the right way about it. It should be more like, we want equal opportunity for everybody. There are different ways to get to that. Really thinking about, are people getting the education that they need? Is the community actually interconnected? Are you actually reaching out to everyone that you possibly could? What is the reason that you're not naturally coming to these outcomes? Why do you have to intervene? Getting really to the root cause. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just one little facet, right? Of just like, let's not just pay people better and hire them and promote them, but let's also include them in the decision-making process, in the culture of the company, and really empowering them and sharing that power and shifting power dynamics and sharing wealth, rather than meeting artificial, metrics that we've created. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, I think that a key point for me, and sorry if you hear my son, he's just having the best time in the hallway right now, but the philosophy of it, and I think that's the biggest point for me, and when I go out and want to talk to people about it, is really about the mindset. And then I think about processes in business or in any type of organization that we can implement so we can meet that philosophy and then get the desired output. So I think it's a great conversation, and I'm so glad that we have the structure to have these conversations, because I think there's a lot to learn, but also taking those learnings out into the world and putting it into practice, which I think is going to be really key if we're going to take it to that next level in this country when it comes to conscious capitalism. You know, we are driven by the dollar, so let's do it in a way that's meaningful and equitable for all. So thank you for sharing that.
That was beautiful, Malia. You always say it so eloquently. I'm like a hodgepodge of stream of consciousness. That's how I communicate. But I guess tying it back to Shelley's work and our genetic legacy, it's, you know, you really don't know where you're going unless you know where you came from. Like, that's really powerful. And I think understanding your history is so powerful. And it's a thing that a lot of us don't have, I think. You know, whether, I don't think it matters where you come from. I think very few people can actually trace very far back in their family tree. Like, I personally, on my mother's side, it gets lost on my grandmother. We kind of know where she came from, but she didn't really tell us a whole lot more than that. And she's passed away a long time ago, so no information there at all. My father's side, but because we're Chinese and men are, you know, more important or whatever, considered more important. There's a whole genealogy book of all of the men in the Wen family. Women are completely excluded, including me. My brothers are in the book.
Really?
Yeah, only the men. And it goes back like thousands of years.
Wow.
So.
Oh, Isabel, let's change that.
That's where the DNA comes in. That's where the DNA comes in to, you know, find those connections and reestablish that lineage so that, you know, you can share that as your own and make it part of your own, and not just, it's kind of like how I look at the history books. It's like we are Americans, but we're not invested in America in that way. We don't have that connection. And this is a way to build that connection. So that's another way for you to also build that connection with your ancestral legacy.
Right.
Hi guys, it's Melissa. I wanted to jump in on this part of the conversation. Isabel and I started navigating the word regenerative at a similar time, I think. And one of the metaphors that was given that was easy to wrap my head around was about the environment. And there's a starfish, you know, and then you cut off the leg of the starfish and it grows one back. When Isabel was talking about those metrics, it's like we just keep creating more starfish legs or having more starfish, but we're not repairing. And going back and looking at history is a fantastic way to do that and making those adjustments. It really resonated with me, Shellie, when you said that the reason you want to have a book each year, which is a nice goal and really achievable, is to counter the negative narrative prior, because we're going back and we're repairing something and telling the whole complete story, and that regenerates a bigger picture. I've also had conversations with friends where they are you know, they're disenchanted with our concept of America, and it's very hard to be prideful about our country, especially nowadays. And especially if you're white, we have another level of shame now that we've been, you know, enlightened to our systemic issues. And I think regenerative is a word that addresses systemic things and helps us relook at it, you know, not just put the Band-Aid on it and keep moving forward. We got to look back. We have to look back at history. We need to pull it back together and put all those pieces together. And my very best friend was talking about even the culture of America. She says, we don't have culture. And I said, I think we do. I think we just don't like it. And so we don't claim it, and we cannot be proud of it, because it is not an easy concept to say, this is my culture, and say that it's something. I mean, the idea of culture is it's something good, something you like, something you participate in. And we have a lot of people in our world and in the US that their participation is passive, you know, or a little bit dodgy. And so by looking at things like history, rewriting that history, adding to the history, you know, putting some of that repair into our culture, we can claim it again as well, and feel more whole and address the system and then have a better system moving forward. So I'm seeing a really collective concept around this. I think similar to Isabel, I tend to like think in stream of consciousness. So I hope this wasn't too much, but I go back to that metaphor of that starfish. And if we're just making more legs or making more starfish, we're not practicing that process of regrowth and repair, which historically is definitely needed.
I think it's a really good analogy to think of it that way. That a lot of clarity in the starfish example.
Yeah,
Good, I'm glad.
I really like what you said, Melissa, in terms of like, we're regenerating the history. I think that's perfect. I think that's exactly it. It's like there's these missing pieces, and without the whole picture, we don't really understand. And I think in particular, it's important because a lot of the work that we're doing, there's this maybe idea that it's new, but it's really not. Like, human suffering has been around as long as humans have, and a lot of it is created by people. And so without really having the context of what's been done in the past or past sufferings, we don't really have full knowledge to really do what's right today. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think history before, when people talk about history, they say it's important for us to know history so that we don't repeat. And I'm like, I think there's a little bit more of a reason why history is important. It's to get that complete picture, right? We really do want to know where we come from. We really do I want to be able to identify with being American. And that's hard sometimes because it means so much more than just being born here and living here. It means being able to embrace what this country has created. And without a complete picture, I don't want to. I mean, that's just some honesty there.
That's exactly it. Knowing, right, Isabel, what you said, you've got to know where you come from to know where you're going. I live by that. And it's because I've been able to get some of my family history and understanding what my family went through, in Filipino labor camps. And now I'm looking at the life, the richness, the abundance I have based on their sacrifice. So it's also understanding, but it's integrating that information in a way that's meaningful to you, to your personal story. And again, and Mel, you know this, but it's the disconnection we have with ourselves, with our wider community, with our families. And it's like, that's why I believe in connection, because when we can start to make those connections, and this is why I believe so firmly in our genetic legacy and the work that, Shellie is leading us through, because you have to start by recognizing where you come from. Then you've got to integrate that understanding and those learnings. And then you have to determine what choices you want to make going forward that are going to be different than what your ancestors did. And then to document it and represent it in the world that we live in is critical if we want to raise consciousness, do better by each other, become more in community with each other. So, and I get hopped up about this. I'm trying not to be too loud because my son just went down for a nap. But Shellie, you know this. I'm so excited about this project, this work. And I want more people involved. It's so critical to us as a human species. It really is.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how we can lift up these stories.
Yeah, it's getting the reception around it, like I say, has been very, very motivating. Like, we can do this, and especially as a shared activity. The same way that we are sharing the work of producing the book and publishing the book is the way that the stories should also be collected. There's just so much information, so many things, like even with my mother who's here, she participated in the cohort, and I'm thinking that I know everything, but there are still stories that, when she's telling the stories, there are still stories that, I didn't know. And we're close. We talk all the time, literally every day. And there was just still like stories that I was like, oh, that, she remembers vividly. And then she's like, just, oh yeah. And I'm like, how come I didn't know that? And so it just sparks a lot of conversation. We're talking about like racial healing. It also provides a platform to have some difficult conversations, but to put them in just a context of facts and try and take out some of, the emotion's going to be there, but it's difficult history to deal with, but it must be dealt with. Pretending that it didn't happen or it doesn't exist is part of the process of the dehumanization of people of color. When people say like, "Oh, I don't see color." If you don't see color, you can't see me.
Yeah.
And so these books are a way for us to be seen, tell our stories in our own voices, to stop leaving it to others, to tell about the impact of what being an American, a BIPOC American has meant. Let me tell you my own story. And it's not all about enslavement. It's not all, there's good that's come out of it. And we just have to figure out how to have those conversations, because we can't move forward until, we have those uncomfortable conversations.
May I?
Yeah.
This is Manahari again, and I just want to say how much I appreciate your project, Shellie. I come from a country that had a 30-year civil war, and I lived practically my whole life in a war environment. Not specifically but a lot of my life was affected by it, and I had one perspective. And there was a project in Sri Lanka that followed almost along the same lines of what you were doing, and it contributed significantly towards the reconciliation efforts that is currently going on in Sri Lanka 10 years after the war. It was a way to acknowledge how much damage the government did to the minority, which is the Tamil minority in Sri Lanka. And it was such a eye-opening, enlightening experience for us that had only heard one side of it. And it was just like this wake-up call. And so I'm seeing what you're doing, and it just immediately reminded me of this. It was phenomenal, and I'm just so amazed by what you're doing. So congratulations. I'm sure it's going to be a great success.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's like I say, it's always uplifting to hear stories like that when the project resonates. And yeah, it's good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Manahari. That's really powerful. I know I said that before, but it's true.
It was really my entire experience growing up was we saw, like, for 8 p.m. news for us was news reports from the battlefield. We heard of numbers of dead, and it was just such a commonplace occurrence that we never really thought too much about it. But in hindsight, it impacted so much of our experiences growing up, and we had only ever heard one aspect of it, which was the majority, the government side, and there was this whole other which we hadn't known. And well, it's almost 15 years later that reconciliation is just now getting started.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, another thought that's coming up for me is like what Shellie said earlier, right? I think it was Shellie. We tend to feel a little bit far removed from history, like beyond living history of like, your parents, maybe your grandparents. And beyond that, it just doesn't feel real, right? And so I think our genetic legacy and what you're doing, Shellie, is like really connecting people to their history, making it real for them. And then once that happens, you can't go back, right? And it not only like connects them to their direct lineage, but also I think because America is so vast and history is so vast, that then also connects them to society even more than they thought they were. So that's
definitely increases that investment in furthering the positivity, furthering the narrative. We talk about like the regenerative aspects of it, like you find out, like when doing the research, you see where the missing legs are in your family, and getting that information to fill in the necessities to rebuild those legs, the mobility that provides is significant. Like in my own research, my second great grandfather coming out of enslavement, he couldn't read or write, but by 1880 he owned his own farm. So just the significance of that achievement, where in modern society, when you think about farming, it's not necessarily a coveted profession just based on, you know, technology and the different things that are going on. It's not a glamorous job that people think of, but that was, you know, a major accomplishment so soon after enslavement. And when you put those facts in context of, like, you know, what the cost of living was during that time, especially when you look at census records that will show you, you know, like $20 was the salary for the year. You're looking at that thinking like there's no way that could be possible. But then when you do the research of, well, what was the, you know, average wage at that time, you might find out that, you know, your relative was rich. Like, you know, where now at $20, like you can't even get a kid to come mow your lawn for $20. You know, $20 used to be an entire month of an allowance. But just when you put all that information in context, and then it also broadens, you know, the realm of possibilities, like the things that you can think of, the things that, you know, you might be doing now that, you know, your great great grandparents or grandparents could have never conceived of. I mean, just the, you know, idea of the cell phone and mobile banking, you know, this next generation, that's all that they know. But it wasn't that long ago that, you know, the ATM card is new to, you know, many of us, you know, as teenagers, our first jobs, you know, there was no such thing as ATM cards. And so there's just so much technology that we kind of don't give proper reference to the past, and that, you know, that foundation that allowed for these new technologies. And it's the same way with people. In paying homage to our ancestors, we are, you know, honoring them for their sacrifice and their achievements.
Well, thank you so much, Shellie. I don't know if anyone else wants to add something or has a question the last few minutes.
I'll just take a quick second to thank everybody, all of my family, both biological and by sisterhood of friends who showed up to participate and support in this effort, not just in today, but in life in general. And then my new friends and my new supporters who have signed on to the project, and then the, you know, and everyone else who's taken the time out to, you know, listen to it, and will hopefully help, you know, to publicize it and to really make this the new standard for how history is recorded in America, that we stop telling people what their stories are and let them tell their own stories.
Yeah, fantastic work, Shellie. It's so impressive how much you've accomplished. And, you know, it also came out of a personal passion and an interest, right? And that just kind of evolved into everyone should be able to do this.
It's done it. It's really come full circle. It was this huge pie in the sky idea, and to just continually, you know, work the problem and whittle it down to a solution that is doable, but yet still covers all the bases, has been a really fulfilling process. And I'm looking forward to the next levels of it with the advisory board bringing in all those, you know, new ideas, new expertise to really take it to the next level. So I'm excited.
Thank you so much for sharing with us today, and just asking everyone to also share or sign up or donate, you know, spread the word. So with that, I'm going to stop the recording.
Thank you, Isabel, for my bad. Totally do not want to, you know, not take a moment to thank you for inviting me. I met Isabel in the chat of a networking event through Sister Cities Project, and she was just on it from jump. You know, we're in the chat, then next thing I know, we're LinkedIn, and then we're, you know, on a Zoom, and she has been a big supporter just from the beginning, and it hasn't even been, like I say, that long. So I really appreciate the opportunity. Thankful that I thought of that before we closed out, because I would have been kicking myself.
Thank you, Shellie. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I love helping people. I personally, you know, love your project. Like I mentioned, my family history, like there's a lot of it missing. So someday I would like to fill in those gaps. So, I mean,
Hopefully we'll see you in cohort 2.
that would be interesting because I don't know if there's any written record on my mom's side. Come from very poor background.
You'd be amazed at some of the, just you're not alone in the research is partly what's helpful, that the other people, just with your same cultural issues that are doing the DNA testing and, really re-examining documents that are already available, but, aren't being indexed for the things that, you're looking for, like they're only being recorded from the male perspective. But that doesn't mean that somewhere in those documents there isn't information that can lead to some of your maternal side as well. So it's just a matter of dedicating that time and effort. And then that's the thing about that, course too, is because I have been researching for 15 plus years and have a lot of connections. I'm able to, even if I don't personally know, I know someone who is expert in that field who can help you find that history. So something to think about.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording now.
Okay. So are we all going to